about 10 lines down.
Correct.
Montana. Okay, so we're just finishing up this last piece of this previous Mishnah. Montana Lahadatan Rabbanan. Who is the author of this brisa? Nadar mechamisha b'nei adam ki'achad. If you made a neder, a vow, not to benefit from 5 people, in one vow, and then let's say you go to a chacham and you say, oh, if I had known, and you do the whole procedure of how to annul a vow about one of the 5 people, then the whole thing is canceled. They're all canceled. If the neder was, 1 second. If you make a neder about 5 people, and the neder is except for one of them, but you don't know which one, hu mutar b'hei nasur, then that one is permitted, and the others are part of the neder is valid for the other ones. So the first part of the brisa has to be where the person says that he would have changed his original, formulation if he knew that the one guy that he didn't want to make a neder about was in there. Whereas the second part of the brisa would be where you would have kept your original formulation, say 5 people except for Joe. Okay, so that then who would have an asuri, and then the rest are still subject to the neder. So ila Rabba, if you go according to Rabba, Reisha Rabbi Akiva, v'Seifa Divrei Hakol, then the brisa is not internally consistent, because that Rabbi Akiva says that a neder that's partly canceled or partly annulled, the whole thing gets annulled. But then the second part, it doesn't follow that. Ila Rava, and if we explain to Rava, say for Rabbana V'Reisha Divrei Hakol. Either way, you can't get around the fact that the brisa is not internally consistent, but you can explain it that the first part takes into account or takes the position that you can not cancel part of a neder, that it's either all or nothing, and the second one has a way to do that. Okay, and then so we leave it at that. Next mission, Nidre Onsi. So we had in the beginning of this parak, there were 4 categories of Nedarim that are not considered Nedarim. Okay, and now we're going to deal with Nidre Onsin, which is a case where where the circumstances beyond your control, which in the Mishnah Gemara is referred to as an ones, right? An accident, you might say, but it's something where you don't control the circumstances. So now we're going to expand on it. So what is that nidrei onsin? Let's say your friend says, I make a neder against you that if you don't come and eat with me, right? If you don't come and come to my party, neder against you, right? You can't benefit from anything I have, okay? And then you don't come to the party. But why didn't you come to the party? Because you got sick. Or your son got sick and you have to take care of him. Or there was a lot of traffic, right? There was a river, you couldn't cross the river. This is called an ones. So typically, in general, the word ones is something that you're really incapable of doing something, right? Here it seems less severe. It's like your son got sick, so you have to say that you could have got somebody, you could have hired somebody to look after your son, or the river was you couldn't cross the river. Well, you should have known because there was a big rain yesterday, so you should have known the river would be too fast to cross. Okay, but here it's like if you have some kind of excuse that something out of the ordinary occurred and you weren't able to fulfill the condition, then we're assuming that the neder, that the person who made the neder, what he meant was that, if you have a good excuse for not coming to my party, then I get it. Then I'm not cutting you off. Okay. So these are harei l'nidrei. This is the kind of thing that is called an onus, and the neder does not take effect. So now we're going to analyze some case studies. So there was a guy who, so he was in a court case over some property, and he had some documentation, some evidence, and he gave the evidence to the court. Okay, v'yamar, and he said, if I don't come back to court within 30 days, then to finish the case, then I'm authorizing you, the court, to discount or I'm abandoning my this documentation that proves my case or that supports my case. Okay, so it's the same idea. Like you are committing to appear by a certain time, like the guy who's supposed to come to the party, and you say, if you don't come, then I'm forfeiting something. Okay. Eden is for loss. So what happens? Some circumstance prevented him from coming back in 30 days. So he had good intention to come back in 30 days, but circumstances prevented. Amar Rav Huna batal zachvase. Rav Huna says, okay, he didn't come back. His condition is effective, and he's abandoning his evidence in the as he stated. If he doesn't come back in 30 days, he's abandoning this evidence to the court. Rava says, wait a minute. He's like, it's accidental. He wanted to come back, but he was prevented from coming back. We have a general principle in the case of an onus, in the case of unavoidable circumstances, the Torah lets you off the hook. So this is a general principle, as I alluded to before, that in the case of an onus, you're not responsible. So, somebody forces you to eat a cheeseburger, okay, with a gun to your head, then that's you're not culpable for that. You'll see even what's the source for that. When the Torah discusses a case of rape of an engaged woman, it says like the perpetrator is punished and the woman is not punished. No, she gets no punishment. And so that is the source, basically, that, look, this is a case of rape, divorce, and she's not culpable, she's not liable. And that's the source for the general idea that you're not liable for something that you had no control over. Okay, so maybe you'll say, well, then we're talking about a capital offense, right? Maybe it's only in the case of a severe punishment, like capital punishment, that we say, you're not culpable, but maybe for lesser things, you would be still culpable. Vatnan, we have another proof. Nidrei onsin, our Mishnah. What is a neder of beyond your control, or the conditions beyond your control? So our Mishnah is a good proof that if you were prevented from coming to the party by circumstances beyond your control or by external circumstances, then the neder is not effective. So this is a good source that says, and we're not talking about capital cases here, obviously. We're talking about the neder, right? Okay, so Gemara says, we have a counterpoint to Rava's statement. In case of divorce, a person says, here's your divorce. I'm giving you a retroactive divorce. I'm going overseas. If I don't come back within a year, okay, then, I guess typically the case would be that you're feared dead, right? But there's no evidence. Like you've gone overseas and there's no way to know what happened to you. So before I leave, I'm giving you this get that will be retroactive to now if I don't come back within a year. Okay. And you die, right? Hooray, a get, then that's a valid get, which is the whole point. But the Gemara is questioning this on a technical grounds. Am I right? There's no greater unavoidable circumstance than death, right? So why don't we say that your intention was to come back, but you died, so you couldn't come back. So the condition shouldn't matter, right? It shouldn't matter that you say, oh, well, you didn't come back. I didn't come back because I got hit by a truck. That's not fault. So be not valid, right? Which kind of turns the whole thing on its head, because presumably the whole point of this get is to release the wife in case he dies, right? Of course, if he dies, then she's released anyway. But there's a difference between there's some difference between a widow and a divorcee. Can you marry a Kohen? Is I think the only one I can think of right now. So anyway, so why does this death not invalidate?
Well, Yibum would be a potential issue.
Oh yeah, right. That's very good. Yeah, because it's right, exactly. So Amrei Gemara says, Dilma Shani Hasa, maybe the case of the get is not comparable. If you knew that you were going to die, you would have just given her a get right now, right? So his intention is it's a little kind of twisting it a little bit, but since we know his intention was to release her from the marriage in the case of his demise, this is all part of the same thing. We're actually fulfilling his intention in the case of the the case of the get. In the case of the neder, and presumably other cases of onus, you wanted to do something, but you were prevented from doing it. Here, he's actually accomplishing what he set out to accomplish. Okay, so Gemara asks another question. What about this case? The person says, same kind of that will be retroactive to now if I don't return within 30 days. Also, Upaskin Abra. So he's coming back to town. The town's on one side of the river, and he gets to the other side of the river. He can't cross the river. The bridge is out, or the ferry's not operating, and so he's within striking distance. He's within sight of the town, but he's not in the town, right? Amar Lahu, and he stood there at the side of the river, and he shouted, "Chazudasai, look, I'm here," right? Like, no divorce. The divorce is not valid because I've returned. Okay, but he can't actually return. So V'amar Shmuel, lo shmei masya. Shmuel says, doesn't count, right? You said you needed to come back to fulfill the condition. You didn't come back. Then the get is effective. So why don't we say he wanted to come back, but he couldn't because of the river, right? So our answer is Dilma unsa de migalia shane. This isn't such a unavoidable circumstance. You should have known. You should have taken into account. You had to cross the river, right? You know that sometimes the bridge is out, or sometimes the ferry service isn't operating, right? So your fault for making such a stupid condition, right? Included in your condition was the knowledge that you might have to allow yourself more time to get back to town because of the river. Okay, so now Rav Huna. Okay, so so Rava has turned back these challenges, and the principle of the Mishnah that the neder is not effective if the condition was not fulfilled because of an onus. That's Rava's position. Well, Rav Huna, but now Rav Huna, who said that back in the case of the court case, he said that the guy has, by not coming back on time, the guy has forfeited his evidence to the court. Let's see. Asmachtahu, the statement he made to say that I'm giving up my rights to this evidence is an asmachta. Asmachta means like a support, right, or a reliance, right? In other words, um, you never really meant it, right? It's like you're trying to avoid, basically it's a case of bail, right? It's like you're saying, okay, I'm putting up these documents as bail, and because I intend to come back, but you never really intended to come to give them up, right? You're just trying to, buy yourself some time for whatever it is, to gather more evidence or whatever it is you need for the court. So you never really meant that you were going to give up your documents when you send it out to court. We have another principle that says that kind of thing is not a valid kinyan, is not a valid way of transferring a property. So if you never really meant to give up the documents, even though you said so, but you were just kidding, right, or just obfuscating, then the court doesn't get the right that you supposedly gave them because you never really meant it. Whereas the shani hacha, now, it's different in the case of this court case, the mitafsan zechusa, because you're actually giving up the document, right? If you're just saying, I'll commit to something if I don't come back in 30 days, but you don't really mean it. That's one thing. But if you actually hand the document over to court, right, and say, I'm abandoning this document if I don't come back in 30 days, then by handing over the document, you're showing that this is not simply an asmachta. It's not simply a dodge, right? But you're actually intending to. So whereas generally we would say an asmachta is not a valid transfer of property, if you actually hand over the property first with this conditional statement, then we do count it as a valid transaction. So Gemara says, well, wait a minute, is that right? Like, just by handing over the documents, that makes it not an asmachta anymore. But not, we have another Mishnah. Mishapar makes us a person pays back half of his loan. And then you take the loan document, the IOU, and you give it to a third party. And you say, if I don't pay up the rest of the debt within 30 days, then give him back the IOU, meaning that I'm authorizing him to collect the full amount again from me, giving him that evidence that I owe him the full amount. So the time's up, and the borrower didn't pay back, didn't fulfill the condition. Rabbi Yossi Omar Yite. Rabbi Yossi says, fulfill the condition. The third party can give the IOU back to the lender. Rabbi Yehuda Omar Lo Yite. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, you can't. And Rav Nachman says we don't follow Rabbi Yossi. We follow Rabbi Yehuda, who said don't give it back because asmachta lo kanya, because you never really meant it, right? If I pay back half the money, I don't really mean that I should be liable for the whole thing again. I was just kind of trying to get the trust of the lender, but I didn't really mean it. So how come in the case of the loan we say asmachta lo kanya, that it's not valid, and here we're saying in the case of our Mishnah we're saying it is valid. The case of the court case is he's not actually giving up the case, right? By giving up your evidence, you're not giving up the case. You could still fight the case and say whatever was at issue, I'm still in the right. I just can't use this evidence anymore. Okay, so whereas in the case of the loan, you're actually by giving back the IOU to the lender, you're actually forfeiting the money that you already, the partial payment that you already made. In the case of the court case, you're not forfeiting anything. You're making it harder for yourself, but you're still making the full claim. So you're not giving up property in the same way. The Hilchasa, and the conclusion is asmachta kanya. If you have a case like this where where you're trying to gain the confidence of somebody and you make this commitment, it's a good commitment. But only if you're not subject to circumstances beyond your control that would invalidate the condition. And also, it has to be a proper court. It can't be three guys that you assemble in shul on Erev Rosh Hashanah. It has to be a distinguished court, so that then that gives it weight, that gives it some gravitas, and the commitment you make verbally is actually taken seriously. Okay, so I guess we can do this mission tomorrow and start from here tomorrow. So,
Dr. Talk, thank you.
Thank you, Dov. Have a good day, everyone. Good
Tomorrow,
day.
God willing.